Good evening. You're welcome. You're watching another episode of TVLinux, the show dedicated to promoting Linux, open source, and enabling you to do more with your computers. I'm sitting here in the TVCTV studios with my guest for this evening, John Casey. John, how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm very fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're glad you're here. John, as I understand it, you're a Linux user, right?
Yes, I am.
And you've recently recently switched over from
Microsoft
to Linux.
Yes, I have.
And we'll be hearing more about that.
I'm very happy about that change.
And we'll be hearing more about that in the show in a few minutes. But we're going to, regular viewers might be wondering where our regular host is, Shaun Savage. Shaun is feeling a little bit under the weather or overworked, so he's taking a little break today, but we hope to have him back in a couple of weeks. Just as a reminder to our viewers, we're live on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month on Channel 11. If you're seeing us on sometime other than a Tuesday evening, then you're probably seeing us a rebroadcast of a recent show. For those who are watching live on Tuesday evenings, we do have it is a call-in show, so if you have questions about Linux or open source, please call in and we'll do our best to answer them. So we're going to start with the nerd news, as we usually do. Well, what's new in the Linux and open source world? Well, as of last Friday, a court that was trying the case of SCO, formerly the Santa Cruz operation, their lawsuit against Novell, found that, just to give a little background, Linux is based on, well, let me rephrase that. It's patterned after the Unix operating system, which was developed by AT&T Bell Labs. And they developed the Unix operating system to quite a high standard, but then turns out that they didn't want to continue being the shepherds of the Unix operating system, so they sold it to Novell, and Novell sold it, I believe, to SCO Unix, and SCO Unix had it for a while, and I forget who they sold it to, but eventually, later on, as we know, Novell got back into the Linux business with their acquisition of, John, do you recall which one?
No, not offhand.
The German distribution escapes my mind right now. The German Linux distribution, so Novell is back in the Linux business. But anyway, somewhere in that transfer of the Unix operating system, it became unclear to some people who actually owned the code, or at least the trademark to the Unix name. Now, during this time, Linux was being developed by Linus Torvalds in Finland, and he was patterning much of the functionality of Linux after the functionality of Unix. And he was also aided by a great body of open source software called the GNU libraries and the GNU utilities, which are applications that are layered up on top of Unix. Since Linux is Unix compatible, they also worked on Linux. So Linux, as I say, was patterned after Unix, but SCO received an infusion of cash from Microsoft, after which they started to sue some of the other Linux players and saying, we own the code to some parts of Linux and you better pay us royalties. Well, just last Friday, the judge who was trying one of those lawsuits ruled that SCO did not own Unix. In fact, it was still owned by Novell, as Novell asserted. And so even though SCO had managed to convince some companies to pay them royalties to avoid legal entanglements, it's presumed now that according to the judge's ruling, that those companies actually owe Novell for their licensing, should Novell choose to pursue that. And any money that SCO might have collected probably really belongs to Novell.
Wow.
Okay, I remember the
Sushi? Was it sushi?
Sushi, right.
Yes, I
S-U-S-E,
thought
right.
of that just as you said that.
Right, so that's the version of Linux that Novell is now offering. So that's an interesting development, but it was just an example of through legal maneuvering that some companies were attempting to profit from Linux at the expense of the rest of the Linux community. Well, that suit is pretty much gutted now. There's not much more left to that one. So that only leaves the Microsoft's allegations about Linux infringement. So Microsoft has claimed that Linux infringes on some 200 plus Linux patents. Of course, they haven't said which ones. The Linux community says, well, tell us which ones they are and we'll either prove they don't or we'll fix it. But Microsoft doesn't tell anyone what those patents are. They just are spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt and putting a cloud over Linux and basically scaring people into thinking, well, maybe we need to make a deal with Microsoft in order to not get sued. Well, that's kind of understandable. I
Yes,
wouldn't want
it
to be
is.
sued.
I wouldn't either.
We wouldn't want to be sued by Microsoft
No.
either, even though
With all that money and all those lawyers.
Oh, right. They've got deep pockets.
Yes,
so to
deep
speak.
pockets is correct.
But as we say, there's actually no proof that Microsoft has any licenses that Linux is using, because they haven't offered any. So that's what's happening in the legal world between Linux and and their adversaries, I guess. Also in the Linux world, Dell and Lenovo, as we've reported in the past, are continuing to ship systems pre-configured with Linux on them. And I know in the case of Dell, they chose the Ubuntu, right,
That's correct.
as their operating system. And frequent frequent visitors to DistroWatch, the site that reports on the spread of Linux, know that Ubuntu is the most commonly inquired about operating system, Linux operating system listed on DistroWatch. So it's
The number one. It has been now for quite a while too.
Right. And we'll get into that a little bit later,
Yes, we
because
will.
John, you'll be talking about Ubuntu.
I have Ubuntu. I had Ubuntu.
Okay, good. We'll be talking about that more later in the show. In other news, a integrated transportation system, I believe, is the full name of the acronym ITS. They have a project to make cars even more intelligent, including adding collision avoidance potentially. And of course, they need a computer inside the car to run these intelligent navigation systems. And they've chosen the board that they're going to use as their first version that they're going to install in computers. And sure enough, it's a board that's going to run Linux. So Linux
Very good.
is very good for embedded systems, which are systems, computers that are put inside other objects like, oh, I don't know, refrigerators and
Right.
and Palm devices, for example, would be, I guess, an example of an embedded Linux. A car might have Linux embedded in it. Various network equipment, often nowadays, if it has an operating system in it, it's Linux based, because who wants to go developing their own operating system? Why not
Correct.
just use one that's freely available?
Right.
So the integrated transportation system project is going with the Linux operating system for
Very
its
good. Very
embedded
good.
computer.
Yeah, very
Right.
good.
Also in news, we often report when other countries are adopting Linux in one way or another. The government of Malaysia has formally embraced the open document format for its official document storage. Open document format is the format that is native, for example, to the OpenOffice Office suite, which we've demonstrated on the show several times. And the key attractiveness of the open document format is that it's published, whereas other document formats that viewers might be familiar with, for example, Microsoft Word format. Microsoft does not publish the format for that. You might be creating documents in Microsoft document format, and it's as long as you can still run the software, you'll still be able to retrieve the information from those documents. But if Microsoft chooses to change its format, or chooses to phase out a format, or if it uses features which other Office suites have not been able to reverse engineer, then at some point you may not be able to read your documents anymore. And as we know, it's a good idea for government documents to stay around a long time. For example, the Declaration of Independence, we wouldn't want that to have been written in something that could not now be read.
Reread, absolutely.
Right.
That's a good idea. Malaysia is very smart to do that, I think.
Right. So the idea is to use a document format for government work, and even for your own document storage that can be read many years down the road. So that's it for the nerd news for today. And what I'd like to do is introduce again our guest for this evening. And our guest is John Casey. And John, I guess I would, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're fairly new to the Linux operating system, is that correct?
Yes. In fact, I've only actually downloaded and installed it only about 3-4 months ago. So I'm very new, as a matter of fact.
Well, that's excellent, because we wanted to have someone who is fairly new to Linux on our show to tell us their experiences, to help educate our audience who might be wondering if Linux is right for them. Mm-hmm. And you can be our Linux newbie, so to speak.
That's exactly what I am, as a newbie. Okay. I still don't know quite a bit. I know I have read up quite a bit, and I've done quite a bit, but on the other hand, there's a lot I don't know. So, but I'm always willing to learn, and I'm going to continue learning as much as I can. So.
Okay. Well, I would imagine that those are keys to learning Linux: is an interest,
yes,
and a willingness to learn, and maybe a little bit of persistence.
Yes, absolutely. I just love the Linux system. Absolutely. I actually got into Linux mostly because of the insecurity of the Microsoft system. That was my main reason for getting into Linux, was I know that Linux is much safer in order to use rather than Microsoft. And when Microsoft came out with their new operating system, Vista, to me it was just a dud. It wasn't any safer, basically, than the XP, of which all my computers are. It's an XP. The hackers had already were waiting for them, and they were already shooting holes in their security system. Basically, when the day that they were actually it came out.
When Vista computers
came out.
So
already they were having problems to begin with. And they, of course, Microsoft now has patches once a month, I think the second Tuesday of every month. But by the time they patch one thing, something else needs patching already, you see. So they're always behind. And it takes them a whole month to do these patches. Whereas if Linux runs into any problem, they can patch at any time. Luckily, they haven't needed to, but there's no scheduled. They can come at any time, and it's worldwide, where if somebody runs into a problem, a security problem, well, they will immediately get onto it, and they will immediately ship it out and take care of the problem. And whereas Microsoft, because they are so big and unwieldy, they cannot do that. And so immediately I thought, I have to do something. I have to do something other than Microsoft. And so that's what led me to start to watch your program, TVLinux, and you and Shaun, and I glued my eyes to the TV and I listened, and you went through the whole system whereby a person could download the distributions by going to distrowatch.com. they can choose any distribution that they wish to try out. And to do that, they would have to download the distribution and then make a ISO image copy to a CD. And then then it became a live CD. And then one could try out each of these distributions to see if they liked them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. Your very first one was TVLinux OS, I believe. Right. Big Daddy was the name. And I actually did that. I made a live CD and I checked it out, liked it. It was the KDE software that I know you like a lot. And then I tried Canopix, tried a number of other distributions, but I kept coming back to Ubuntu. I just, for some reason, I liked Ubuntu. Just like pretty much their layout and so forth. I like the repository type things that they have there. And so eventually I got up the nerve and I installed it.
Okay, so you tried it out on the live CD first.
Yes.
It seemed to do what you needed to do.
What I liked it to do.
The layout of things seemed to be easy to work with.
Very easy to work with.
So you took the plunge and
installed. I took the plunge,
Ubuntu.
right. It took a little nerve, I must tell you. But I did it, and there was no one to help me. I don't know anyone who has Linux. And so there was no one to hold my hand, so to speak, in case I run into a problem. Although I did actually eventually run into only one problem, but actually it really wasn't, that was taken care of, so.
Okay. So did you install it on a desktop or a laptop?
Yes, it was a desktop computer. But what happened is that after I had installed it, the Ubuntu didn't recognize my wireless system. I have a Windows type of wireless, completely wireless system, Comcast broadband, and it wouldn't recognize the wireless system. So that was a problem. Now, if I were to connect the computer to the router, then I could get the internet, but it wouldn't wirelessly. It would not recognize it. So then I called my favorite man, Yellow Carry On, and that was you, of course, and asked you about that. You were, because I'd seen you for almost a year on TV, and so I thought, there's only one person I need to call, and that's you, and you did help me out on that problem.
Good thing, huh?
Yes, it was a very good thing. So anyway, I really, outside of that, I had really had hardly any problems at all, and the Ubuntu and Linux was able to recognize all of my hardware. Now I have some old hardware too. I had, all of my printers and scanners were from way back 2001, but yet it recognized all of those hardwares. So I was really kind of surprised, very happily surprised, as a matter of fact.
So if this had been Linux, you'd have been searching for all your old drivers. If this had been Microsoft,
I would have had to really. That's
disks,
correct.
Linux,
right. Yeah, there's no disk involved. It immediately recognized, and they functioned beautifully. So I couldn't have been happier.
There you go, another happy Linux, another happy
So
Linux
that's why
user.
I'm an advocate. So.
Okay, great. So you installed this on a desktop system,
Yes,
right?
I did.
And did you, normally when you install Linux, the first thing it asks you is, do you want to just wipe out everything and install Linux, or do you want to do custom partitioning, or do you want to just use your free space? How did you answer that question?
Well, I answered, I decided to have a dual booting system. I decided to have both Windows and Linux, Ubuntu, on my system for many reasons. For one, my wife wouldn't be able to use a Linux immediately anyway. So that was one reason. And The other reason is, of course, I've got granddaughters that come over and play games and so forth, and they only know the Windows system. They only have Windows disks and so forth. So it would just made more sense to actually have a dual system.
Okay. So you had a disk, and part of the disk still had the Windows on it.
That is
correct.
correct.
Part of it had the Linux on it. Did the Ubuntu system partition the disk for you?
Yeah, yes, that was the beauty. Although I read a lot on partitioning, it's probably the hardest thing for one to understand, I think, who's starting out in Linux. It's the only intimidating thing, actually, if you get right down to it, as far as I'm concerned. But I didn't have to worry about it because they presupposed they could see the disks recognized all what I had on my computer. It saw my Windows, and it suggested to me. It didn't force me to, but it suggested of how much space I should take out of the Windows and place the partition. And it was just beautiful, the way it worked out. I mean, I had already read that normally they try to take out, say, 10 gigabytes, and then a swap, which is double the RAM size. But in my computer, I didn't have that much of a hard drive. In fact, it was only a 30 hard drive computer, of which only 26 was usable. And I had used an awful lot of that hard drive through the years with the Windows system. So it actually carved out about 8.5 gigabytes, which really isn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. I mean, that's plenty adequate, actually. I find it plenty adequate. So anyway, I didn't have to worry about that because it suggests on how much and where you should have it and so forth, and you can say yes or no. And if you don't like that, then you can do it manually. They have a way you can click on manual, and then you can decide how much yourself and so forth. But this took a big weight off of my shoulders to suggest, because they really do know pretty much about what you need.
Yeah,
so I was very happy that they did that for me.
Okay, great. I see you've brought some books here today.
Oh,
Are
yes.
those your Linux resources?
Yes, these are. These are my Bibles, my Linux Bibles. This is called Beginning Ubuntu Linux. You don't have to actually have only Ubuntu. It actually is very valuable no matter which distribution you have, actually. There's a lot of general information about that you could use in any distribution. It's very thorough, and I really many times seek help from this reference. And the other reference that I use very often is, of all things, Linux for Dummies. But it really is a very good reference. It goes through all the different things that you might encounter in your journey through a Linux operating system. And so I very much value these books, and I still go back to them. I think it's a very, very good references for almost any purpose.
I see that the Linux for Dummies books refers to with full Fedora core and Knoppix distributions on DVD.
That is correct. You can actually try out those distributions. And here's the CD, and you could actually try out them without installing them to see if you like them, and I did, as a matter of fact. And that was one of the, but I made an awful lot of my own live CDs as well. So,
okay.
But I did actually try these out as well.
So you found enough information useful to Linux in general. It's not just, it's not all Fedora core specific.
Oh no, it is
Ubuntu.
not.
It's
No,
a lot of commonality between them.
There's a lot of commonality I find in all the distributions, actually. And that's the beauty of Linux in a way. There are so many things that they do the same, you know. And the command line, for instance, in the terminal, the commands are virtually the same for no matter which distribution that you choose. So, and I'm now doing some of that. I'm trying to work myself into more and more of the command line type thing, but that's going to come a little bit slower. Now I can look up the command line of what I need to do in these books, as a matter of fact, but I'd rather like to be able to use it without having to look them up.
Okay. And did you have any other resources that you used?
Yes, I did. I used a lot of Googling, as a matter of fact. Googling is very, very important. And it's so surprisingly what you can find when you Google, especially for some reason, I don't know why, but Linux. It's just the information you can find in Googling anything Linux, it's just plethora of information you can run into. And then I have helped myself out in things that I would like to do quite a bit by Googling. And another resource is forums, linuxquestions.org. I think you're familiar with that.
Right.
By seeing the problems that other Linux newbies like myself have, I can read what they have done as a result. An expert will come on and type out the answer, basically, and if that's coincides with the question that you have, well then it's really great that you know you can take their experience and then just run with it. Basically,
an amazing thing about the web is it puts you in touch with people who have been in just the same situation.
Same exact situation, right? And exactly. And then of course Ubuntu has their own forum. In fact, all the distributions have their own forums, so you can actually specifically get into specific distributions that way. But it's not necessarily. I find that linuxquestions.org is just as valuable as the Ubuntu forum, actually, because, like I said, there are so many similarities between the distributions.
Linuxquestions.org also has sub-forums on the major distributions, I believe.
They do. They do. Mandriva and Mapus and all of the distributions. Right. They do.
Lots of questions and answering going on.
Yes, they are.
Forums.
Yes, and you can use those, even though it may be another distribution. I have actually used them with my Ubuntu.
So do you ask questions as well, or do you
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, I've asked 2 questions on Linux, linuxquestions.org, and they answered both of them, so which was very nice.
That's great.
Yes.
Free support.
Yes, it is free support. Well, the thing is that none of my email people and so forth, none of them have Linux, and so there's not that many people I can call and ask. So, but I don't need to, basically. I mean, if I have any real problem, I can always call you. Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, it's good to have a friend who.
Yeah, it is.
Who has
It is. Right. It's good to have someone who knows more than you do.
So you mentioned that you were dual booting your systems for a while between Windows and Linux.
Yes.
At what point did you feel as if it was time, or have you decided it's time to give up on Windows altogether?
Well, actually, at the moment, I'm just about, I'd say 98% Linux, only Linux.
Okay.
I'll hardly ever go to Windows. I can't even remember right off the bat the last time I actually had to go to Windows. However, like I said, my wife is not Linux trained, and of course my grandchildren and so forth are not. And so I probably will continue the dual booting situation, but personally I will not be using Windows hardly at all. I don't now, so I don't see any reason to, actually, because Linux has the equivalency in software to everything that Microsoft has. So why use it? There's no real reason to use it. And it's unsafe. A lot of it is unsafe. So, and I know that the Linux ones are safe. So.
Okay. So what are some of the applications that you do use Linux for?
Well, I'm quite into photography. In fact, I'm kind of the family photographer. And so I do a lot of photo editing. And I found a very, very good software program called GIMP. And it satisfies, I can do just about anything with the GIMP that I can do with any other Microsoft or Windows-based photo, including Adobe and so forth. I don't really need to go to them. I can just use the GIMP, and it satisfies all my needs. So.
And how much does GIMP cost?
It doesn't cost anything.
It's
That's
free.
the beauty of it,
Right.
Jesse.
GIMP, just for our viewers who are not already familiar, GIMP, the Graphics Image Manipulation Program, is available for free for Linux, for Windows, I believe for Macintosh, and probably for other operating systems
Right.
as well.
I'm sure.
So that's if you're interested in open source software and want a place to start.
You can take my word for it. It's good.
Yeah, just search for GIMP, G-I-M-P. Go to their website and download the version for your operating system, whichever it might be, and give it a try. And then that's a good start in getting into the open source world.
It is, absolutely, yes. And of course, I use the Thunderbird email system. And that's very good too. It compares well with just about anything you'd ever have anywhere else. I have no complaints whatsoever on that either. So, and that's open source as well. So there's no reason to use Outlook Express or anything else that Microsoft has to offer. So,
That's good.
so I haven't suffered any problems whatsoever in my complete transition from Windows to Linux. I'm very happy with it. I actually got into Linux primarily, I think I said, it was because of security, the lack of security. And I can see down the line too, if all Microsoft is going to offer is things like Vista, then God help us, down the line, because basically it's a big overgrown system that you need a lot of hard drive space for, and it really doesn't make you any safer. And so if this is the future, well, it's not a good future, basically, I don't think. And so that's why I got into Linux in the first place. But actually, now that I'm in it, I find the biggest thing I like about it, it's fun. It's a fun system. It's faster. It boots up 3 times as fast as my Windows side of the booting system, and it's quicker. And when I go around the systems, so it's quicker in every way than on the Windows booting side of the grub booting loader. So.
And you mentioned this was on an older desktop.
Yes, it is. It's an older and with a small, hard drive and so forth. So and with only a Celeron processor too, which, that was one reason why it's so slow on the Microsoft side, is because it's a slow processor. But that doesn't. It doesn't matter with the Linux. It seems to go fast with the Linux. You see, so that's another reason, and I'd read that it works a lot better on older machines. And so. Have you found that to be the case?
Oh, yeah. I've run Linux on as slow as 133 megahertz.
Oh, my
I believe.
goodness.
And
it's terrible.
It had, the system had, I believe it was 48 megs of RAM. And
wow. Well, this was a big 128 megs of RAM. Of course, that's minuscule compared to what it is now.
Right.
So 128 is just nothing.
And Windows Vista runs on 512 megs and up.
Right.
And
well, mostly up. I've talked to people who say that even 1 gig is not enough. That 2 gigs is really primarily what they should be running.
That's what I found.
Yes. So, so it's nice. Like I said, I've got this old machine, and my other desktop is a 2003 model, and I have a laptop that's a 2004. You know,
So do all three of these, are they all Linux capable now?
yes, they all are dual booted Linux capable now. So.
Okay.
Like I said, though, I'm the one that uses the Linux side. My wife still has not ventured forward yet, but give her time. She'll get used to it.
Well, if the choice were, if someone were on XP and needed to move to another operating system, say Vista or Linux, if you're going to learn a new user interface anyway.
Right. You have to learn a new system entirely anyway. And so why not go to a much better and safer, and it'll be even faster. I swear it'll be faster even, you know, as fast as mine goes on my small, my old system, you know, it would have to be faster. So anyway, I'm glad, very, very glad that when I found you, I was just channel surfing, and one day I found you on channel 11, and I thought, well, I'm going to sit here and see what they have to say, you know, because I really knew very little about Linux. Very little was written by Linux, you know, and so I thought, well, I'm going to find out a little bit, and so you got me hooked, you know, and then you said that in 2 weeks you'd have another show, so I watched that, and so I continued to watch the shows, and like I said, and then you finally came to the show where you did a live CD of PC Linux OS, and I followed suit, and I'm glad I did.
Okay. Well, speaking of finding our show, we should remind our viewers, in case they've just tuned in, about our show times. We're live on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month at 7 p.m. If you're watching us any other time during the week, then you're probably watching a rebroadcast. There are our show times. We repeat Mondays, Channel 23 at 10 p.m., Thursday, Channel 23 at 11 a.m., and Saturday, Channel 11 at 10 a.m. So, John, outside of the GIMP, what other applications? Oh, when you mentioned Thunderbird for your email program.
Yes, for email. They also have Evolution, which is a good email. But between the two, I like the Thunderbird myself.
Okay.
But they're both good. There's nothing wrong with any of them.
Are there any other applications that you've tried in the Linux world that you've found particularly useful?
Not all that much, really. Like I said, I'm kind of a photographer of the family, and so that's my main interest is photography, and so I spend a lot of time doing that. Of course, I do use the scanner. You know, they have a X-Sane, I believe it is, that recognizes my very old scanner, and I'm sure it'll recognize almost any scanner, as a matter of fact, and so it works beautifully, and so I use that an awful lot too. So outside of the email and that, I really, not much more than that, actually.
But you're not the gamer in the family. That's
no, I'm not a gamer, no.
The kids who come over.
No.
Okay.
Or instant messenger either. I'm not an instant messenger type of person. So, although
Linux
they have a good program.
Linux has quite a few games available. I haven't spent much time with it, so I don't have anything handy to show our viewers tonight in the game world. But that'd be a good topic for a future TVLinux. So keep on tuning in, and we might get to that topic soon. So, John, are you still using Ubuntu then?
No, I'm not. After I chose Ubuntu, I really did like it and so forth. I found another distribution that I actually like better. After, like I said, I'm constantly reading and I'm going through all the distributions and going to their website, and so I made a live CD of Linux Mint. And I fell in love with it. It actually, though, is Ubuntu based. It's basically completely Ubuntu based, but it has the better layout that I like. And so I have actually switched from Ubuntu. I would have had that as an addition additional distribution, which I could, except it didn't have the hard drive space on that that computer. So then but I had not put any of I had not put Ubuntu on my other two computers. So I just went ahead and just put the Linux Mint into those as well. There's another advantage of Linux Mint in that it comes with the proprietary software that Ubuntu does not come standard. Mm-hmm. However, in Ubuntu, you can still download the proprietary software if you want, but it's you have to do it, and I did actually on the Ubuntu. I had it running perfectly, but in the Linux Mint, the proprietary software is already in it out of the box, and so I didn't have to actually go in and put it in myself. So that was one of the advantages of Linux Mint.
Well, that's one of the advantages of working with an open source operating system,
right,
is that it's okay to take someone else's version of Linux and adapt it to make it more appealing to one group or another, and then come out with your own distribution, right, tailored to a particular group. In this
right.
case, it's to people who want more of a turnkey system as
right.
opposed to adding the software in themselves.
Well, one reason, of course, is that I wanted the proprietary software was because, of course, my email people send me videos and streaming videos of all kinds and so forth. I wanted to be able to open it on my Linux system rather than have to shut off the Linux system and then go to Microsoft and then to see the video and then come back to Linux, and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I wanted to actually exclude Windows entirely, and that was one way I could do that, is to have the proprietary software already installed, or like I said, I've actually learned how to install it now. So if I could actually install it in Ubuntu again if I wanted to. I have all the figures and so forth on how to do that. Mm-hmm. But in updates too, when Linux updates, like Ubuntu updates about every 6 months, I believe, to a new software and so forth. And if I had kept Ubuntu, then I would have had to again go in and do all the manipulations to get the proprietary software. I don't believe that stays in the system once you have updated it. I could be wrong about that, but I've heard that I would just have to go. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, of course, even if that were the case, But if in Linux Mint, when they update, theirs is going to be with the proprietary already still installed.
Okay,
so
they'll do
there's
the
a little
work.
laziness on my part, maybe.
They'll do the work for you.
That's correct.
Callers.
Do we have callers?
Yep, right there on the phone.
Oh.
See the teleprompter?
Okay, well, let's check line 2 and see who's on line 2. Caller, you're on the air on TVLinux.
Great. This question is for John Casey. If you were to give one piece of advice to people who are newbies or are thinking about using Linux, what would you say?
I would say go for it. It is something that I am very, very excited about. I really enjoy it, and I would never go back to Windows again.
And you would suggest that it's easy for grandma to use?
It was no problem for me, and remember, you're not talking about a youngster here. I'll be 70 years old on my next birthday.
So you're a grandpa then?
So I'm a grandpa 3 times over.
So it's easy enough for grandpa
So if
to
it's
use.
easy for a grandpa, I think anyone can do it.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Thank you for the question, Shaun.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have Kevin on the phone on line 3. Kevin, are you there?
I'm here. I switched over to Linux for the foreign language support, and I was really pleased what do you guys think about the one laptop per child thing?
Oh, I had an opportunity to see the one laptop per child device recently at OSCON in July down here at the Portland Convention Center. It's a cute little box. It's friendly colored, so it's more appealing to the younger younger set. But then again, Dell is coming out with lots of colors too. So I guess we all like a little bit of excitement. We're tired of the black box. They were demonstrating it. It has a smaller screen, helps cut down on the price. And what they weren't demonstrating, but what they described was that in the past there was rumors that there would be a crank on the side to generate electricity so that it could be used in villages that don't have regular electricity or don't have any electricity at all. But what I've heard is that the crank proved to be fragile, and so they've gone to a pull mechanism. So you pull it kind of like the string on the back of a talking doll or something. You pull it, the string, and it kind of winds the generator, and I believe you get like 10 minutes of electricity for 1 minute of.
And then you have to pull it again.
Right. So.
Yes.
My impression of that would be that if you and your brother were both wanted to use a computer, you'd make a deal where he would pull the cord every few minutes, and then you would compute, and then you'd switch places. Did you have other questions about the one laptop per child that I could answer?
How close are they to success?
As I've seen units that I don't believe they're available for sale yet. But they do have models that they were demonstrating that actually worked. They're trying to get under $100.
Yes, I heard that they were actually getting more expensive, though. That's what at last I heard, too.
Last I heard they're under $200.
You're right.
I'm not exactly sure what
Yes.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely they want to get the number of potential buyers increased to the point where the manufacturing scale of efficiency can really kick in and bring the cost down.
So do they have their buyers?
Pardon?
Do they have enough buyers yet, or?
I forget what the number was that they're looking for, like 50,000 or 100,000 or something. But I guess they're talking to governments and would buy them in mass for their students. So it's not up to just you and me to go down to the store and buy as many as we can afford, but they're actually talking about thousands, and I imagine tens of thousands or 100,000s per country in places where it's not affordable to buy a full-price laptop.
Sweet. Have you guys heard about the PlayStation 3?
Could you say that again, please?
Have you guys experimented with any of the PlayStation 3 Linux distributions?
No, have you?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
It's a Yellow Dog Linux. It's based on Red Hat. As far as I've been able to, I'm a newbie, so I've been trying to find out things and use it for digital photography. The web browser works great. It's using Firefox. Thunderbird is available with it. I haven't figured that out because of the pop messaging and stuff with Yahoo. I haven't done that yet. And it's fast. It's fast. It works good.
So you've actually run Linux on the PlayStation 3, right?
Yes.
That's excellent.
That is good.
That would be a good demonstration for a future show.
It would be.
After we talk, perhaps you'll give your name and phone number to the folks in the booth, and maybe we'll give you a call and have you on the show to demonstrate that.
That's very interesting. Would be a very interesting show.
Mm-hmm.
Anything for extra clues.
Any other questions for us, Kevin?
Yeah, one of you were saying that you had done a lot with photography on Linux. Do you do any batch conversion of JPEGs to make them smaller?
I heard that the question was about photography. Could you repeat the question? I didn't quite get it.
I didn't either.
Oh, I take a lot of digital photographs, and I typically have been using UrbanView, a Windows program, and under Darwin on a Mac. And I haven't managed to get to PowerPC, obviously, because it's difficult to use any Windows programs on PowerPC, even under Linux and the various tools you have. But I have been using GThumb, and GThumb has just about everything you need, but the PowerPC version doesn't have the batch processing to downgrade the color spectrum. Just take the color spectrum down to take a large chunk of size off the photograph without losing pixels. They'll still do that one picture at a time, but I haven't got the batch yet.
I've used IrfanView on a Windows system, and it's one of my favorites for picture
It's
manipulation.
one of my favorites
viewing.
too, as a matter of fact. I use it myself.
But you mentioned GThumb. I tend to work in the KDE environment, so I haven't done much with GThumb. John, have you?
No, I have not done any GThumb. Sorry. I can't help you on that one.
Okay, well, that's another good.
The only one I use is the GIMP. So
Another good topic for future shows. Kevin, if you'll excuse me, I have another call coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling. This is TVLinux. Oh, Bill. No, Shaun's not here this evening. He's taking a show off to rest up and recharge batteries. Yeah, well, I hope he's okay too, and I'm glad that you called. Unfortunately, Shaun's not here. Did you have any questions about the Linux operating system, Bill? That's an interesting point, Bill, that Microsoft is making licensing agreements with a few of the Linux vendors. For example, Novell, which has the SUSE Linux. I believe they've made some kind of cross-licensing agreement, and I believe
Linspire, I believe. Linspire, I believe is another.
Linspire also has, isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. Bill, I have to be honest with you, some people in the Linux community are not sure that that is actually good for Linux. It seems some people feel that that's an attempt to split the Linux community into those who have signed a deal with Microsoft and those who haven't. And so a lot of people just don't like that kind of a licensing agreement. Yeah, I understand that there's a lot of money on one side or the other, and personally I feel that if it would be good if technical decisions were made based on technical merit as opposed to who could afford the most expensive lawyers. Okay, we'll say hello to Shaun for you. Thanks for calling in. Okay, bye. I don't know how he got my number.
I know he always calls Shaun.
Right.
When Shaun is here.
This is the second
so
time.
So this is your phone, though.
Right.
So how he got your number, I have no idea.
I don't know. There's another show where Shaun actually forgot his phone and Bill called me. I don't know.
Well, it's still nice for him to call, though, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
Right. It's nice to have regular viewers.
Yes,
and he's
it is.
one of our most,
he is very
most
regular.
Loyal.
That's right. Very
most
loyal.
loyal viewer.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's. John, is there anything else, any other tips that you can offer to our viewers having to do with starting out with Linux or?
No, not that I can think of right off the bat. Like I said, you can find just about anything you need either through these two books or through Google or through the forums, and they give me my tips basically. I can't think of anything right offhand. If somebody were to ask me about a particular thing, then I could probably explain it, but and give a tip on it, But I can't think of anything offhand.
Okay. You mentioned that the point where you needed some help was with the wireless.
Yes, that I did, and that was the only real help I needed. And of course, you came through for me on that. It's funny though that some distributions, like the PC Linux OS, for instance, immediately when I put in the live CD, it recognized everything, and it was right up, and I could get right on line and within internet. And then others, you know, it has to search, and it can't, for some reason, it just can't find it. And so basically what we had to do, as you remember, is to do it manually. But it still works the same way, basically, you know. But I often wonder, though, how come some distributions have the ability to recognize my wireless system completely and immediately, and then others don't.
I have another laptop that I've tried wireless on. It had an Ubuntu system loaded on it, and I took one of the external cards, slid it into the laptop, and I was actually watching the system messages in the background, and it detected the card.
I did.
It figured out what chip was on there, and it configured it all ready to go, even though a year ago this particular card did not easily work under Linux.
Is that right?
In the intervening time,
somehow
the Linux, the wireless people got it to work basically plug and play. So it's just a matter of telling it what my network name was, what my encryption key was, and was there anything else? No, I believe that was it. And then it got right on the internet. It was working.
Well, I had several that recognized my network name, but not the WEP key. The name, though, it came right up with the name. You know, so you'd think if they could come up with the name, they could come up with everything. You'd think that.
Well,
you know?
You would still have to type in your key, but it didn't recognize your key?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the key. No, it didn't recognize the key. That's right. So.
Well, John, I'm glad that you were on our show tonight and reassuring our viewers
I'm very
that
happy to be here.
Linux is easy to use.
And it really is.
If we could have a shot of the crew in the back room. Okay. Well, we thank our crew in the back room for making this show possible. Dennis, Chris, Mark, and Gabe and Ryan, thank you very much. And tune in again for TV Linux.